Hello, I'm Ned, and you're watching the BIBLE News Report. We have a shocking report from the land of Canaan about a couple that just had a brand new baby boy. You might wonder, what's so surprising about that? But what if I told you? The father is 100 years old and the mother is 90. Yes, that's right. New son born to 90-year-old Sarah. And people are saying it's a miracle from God. Live on the scene in the land of Canaan is everyone's favorite reporter, Danielle. Danielle, can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, Ned. I'm here in the land of Canaan where this miracle baby was born. I'm going to speak to some of the people around here and hopefully the parents.
Excellent. To start us off, Danielle, can you give our viewers a little backstory?
Absolutely. Abraham is a shepherd who is originally from Haran. However, he left that area and chose to travel to Canaan. Abraham claims God told him to leave his father's household. So on nothing but faith, he went. Abraham is known for his close relationship with God. I have here with me one of Abraham's shepherds. His name is Micah, and he's been in charge of Abraham's flocks for some time. How are you, Micah?
I'm good, thanks.
What can you tell us about Abraham in the past? Did God speak to him often?
Yes, Abraham definitely has a special relationship with God. It's pretty amazing.
Did Abraham ever talk to you about any of his conversations with God?
Sometimes there's one that really stands out. This was just after Lot, that's Abraham's nephew, left us. You see, there wasn't enough grass for all the livestock, so Abraham told Lot to go where he wanted to live with his livestock, and we went the opposite direction. That's how we ended up in Canaan.
I see. What happened next?
Abraham sometimes goes on walks by himself. I think that's when God speaks to him. One day after returning from one of these walks, he told me what happened. It was several years ago, but I'll never forget it. This is what God said. Look from where you are to the north and to the south, to the east and to the west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if the dust could be counted, then your offspring could be counted.
That's an amazing promise.
It's even more amazing when you realize Abraham didn't even have any children then. But Abraham believed God, and he told me he had faith that one day he would have a child.
Thank you for speaking with us, Micah.
My pleasure.
Oh, excuse me, ladies. Might I have a word? My name's Danielle, and I'm a reporter with BIBLE News. I'm covering the story of Abraham, Sarah, and the baby.
Well, sure, we can chat for a minute. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Judith. We're Sarah's maids.
Excellent.
It's going to be on TV?
Yes, indeed. Is that all right?
Fine with me.
Me too. Wonderful. Now, I'm assuming you two were pretty surprised when you found out that Sarah was expecting a child.
We certainly were. I can remember several years ago, there was talk that because Abraham didn't have any children, all his inheritance would go to Eleazar.
Right. Eleazar is one of the other servants, and he was Abraham's right-hand man, so we all assumed he would be Abraham's heir. But that was before Ishmael.
True.
Who's Ishmael?
Well, this new little one, Isaac, is Sarah's first child, but not Abraham's.
That's right. Abraham and Sarah, well, I think they started to doubt what God had said to Abraham about having lots of descendants. So Abraham, actually it was Sarah, now that I think about it, came up with this plan. And I heard them talking about it. Abraham would be there and Sarah would give her servant Hagar to Abraham and she would bear him a child. Well, Abraham went right along with it and she bore him a son. And that was Ishmael.
But it didn't work out so well. There was a lot of fighting and jealousy between Sarah and Hagar. You know, I don't think God ever meant for Abraham and Sarah to do things that way. I think they should have just waited.
That's right. But nobody listens to us.
Thank you for taking the time to share with us, ladies.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Well, Ned, that was certainly an interesting twist, wasn't it?
Yes, it certainly was.
You know, We've had some great conversations so far. Oh, but I think it's about time we talk to the source. Excuse me, Abraham? I'm Danielle with BIBLE News, and I was hoping I could ask you some questions.
What would you like to know?
What can you tell us about the promises God made?
Well, that's a long story, but I can give you a couple examples. God has always been faithful to keep his promises, even when I've been foolish enough to doubt him. I remember one of the creative ways he used to describe his plan. He said to me, "Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. So shall your offspring be."
Wow.
I don't know if you've ever tried to count the stars, Danielle, but it's an impossible task. I remember hearing those words, and I truly believed them. I believed that God would do what he said he would do.
That's wonderful.
Yes, it was. But I have to admit that I had my doubts as the years went by and there was still no child. But then God appeared to me again. This was just a couple years ago, and he told me he was changing my name. See, I used to be called Abram, but God changed it to Abraham, which means father of a multitude. And he again promised that I would have a child, and he specifically said that it would come through my wife. And he changed her name too. She used to be called Sarai, but he changed it to Sarah, which means mother of nations.
What was your reaction to that?
Well, I'm ashamed to admit that I actually laughed. How could a 100-year-old man and a 90-year-old woman possibly have a child? But God said that I would have a son and that he would make an everlasting covenant with my family. He said the child's name would be Isaac. Oh, here they come now. Danielle, I'd like to introduce you to my wife, Sarah, and my son, Isaac.
Oh, he's beautiful.
Thank you.
It's an honor to meet you, Sarah. I've heard a lot about you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you.
Abraham was just telling me about how God changed his name and yours and what they mean. What does Isaac mean?
Isaac means he laughs.
Really? No offense, Abraham, but do you think God chose that name because you laughed when he said you would have a child?
That's what I think. It's a reminder to me to always trust God, no matter how crazy his promises seem at the time.
I think God had a different reason for choosing the name Isaac.
What's that?
Well, after God changed our names and promised us Isaac, we had 3 visitors come to our home. Upon first glance, they seemed like ordinary men, but that was not the case.
No? Who were they?
They were from God, angels perhaps. One might have been the Lord himself. But what we do know is that they were heavenly beings.
I got so excited when I met them that I insisted that they stay, wash their feet, and have a meal. And while we were eating, they said that within a year, Sarah would have a child.
I was in the tent and I heard him and I laughed. I mean, I'm 90 years old.
You don't look a day over 70.
Thank you. You're a very nice young lady. Well, after I laughed, I heard the man say, "Why does Sarah laugh?" and say, "Now that I'm old, I'm going to have a child. Is anything too hard for the Lord? In a year, I'll come back at the appointed time and Sarah will have her son."
Amazing.
And God's promise was true. I'm holding the proof. God wanted me to have joy and laughter, and I think everyone who hears this story will laugh with us.
Always trust God's power. He is able to do more than you could ever imagine. All we need to do is trust him and have faith.
What a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me and all our viewers. I'm Danielle with BIBLE News. Back to you, Ned.
Thank you, Danielle. That's some great food for thought for all of us. You've been watching BIBLE News. Thank you and good night.